you are. The most dangerous lie you've been taught is that attraction begins with the right words. It doesn't. It begins with the right being. Words don't create desire. You are. Presence does. And yet people panic over a simple moment someone says, "Hi, how are you?" And suddenly the mind collapses into strategy, performance, overthinking. You are. You think the chase is triggered by a line. No, the chase is triggered by the absence of need. If you want someone to move toward you, you are. You must stop leaning toward them first. Power doesn't announce itself. Power waits. When you say, "Hi, how are you?" with the wrong internal posture, you are. It sounds like a request for approval. When you say it with the right posture, it sounds like an invitation. Same words, entirely different energy. You are. One asks to be chosen. The other assumes worth without asking. People don't chase what begs, they chase what stands still and knows its value. You are. The moment you treat attention as oxygen, you suffocate attraction. The moment you treat it as optional, it becomes magnetic. Here is the brutal truth. You are. Chasing is a response to distance, not pursuit. Human desire wakes up when something valuable does not rush toward them, not because of cruelty. You are. Not because of manipulation, but because value signals itself through restraint. A calm, "How are you?" spoken from a life that is full, ordered. You are. And self-directed carries weight. It says, "I am not here to convince you. I am here because I chose to be." That single psychological shift changes everything. You are. Most people talk too much because they're afraid of silence. Silence, however, is where attraction breathes. When you over-explain, over-text, over-invest early, you are. You remove mystery. And mystery is the space where curiosity grows. A man doesn't chase because you impressed him. He chases because he wants to know more. You are. And he wants to know more when you don't hand him everything for free. Not information, access. You see, confidence is not loud. Confidence is contained. You are. It doesn't perform. It doesn't rush. It doesn't try to secure the future in the first conversation. When you ask, "How are you?" and then genuinely listen, you are, without trying to steer, fix, or impress. You reverse the usual dynamic. You become the one observing, not auditioning. And observation is power. You are. People pursue those who make them feel seen without being consumed. There is a deep mistake people make. They believe attraction is about adding something. You are. A better line, a smarter response, more availability. In reality, attraction is about subtracting weakness, subtracting the need to be liked. You are. Subtracting the fear of losing someone you barely know, subtracting the habit of placing strangers on pedestals. When you subtract those things, you are. What remains is calm authority, and calm authority pulls people forward without force. The chase doesn't happen because you hooked him. You are. It happens because you didn't try to, because your life already has direction, because you're not waiting by the phone. You are. Because your happiness doesn't hinge on his reply. When someone senses that your attention is selective, not desperate, they begin to work for it. You are. Effort flows toward value, always. And here's the uncomfortable part. If someone doesn't chase after that, it doesn't mean you failed. It means you filtered. You are. Not everyone is meant to pursue you. Not everyone has the capacity to meet you at your level of self-respect. Chasing is not proof of worth. It's proof of alignment. You are. When alignment is absent, distance is a gift, not a loss. So when you say, "Hi, how are you?" say it without hidden hunger. You are. Say it as someone who would be fine either way. Say it from a place of fullness, not lack. Let your tone be steady. Let your pace be unhurried. You are. Let your life speak louder than your words. Because the most powerful thing you can communicate in that moment is not interest, it's independence. In the end, you are. People chase what they cannot control and cannot ignore. You become that by building a life that doesn't revolve around their response. Speak simply. Stand firmly. You are. Move forward regardless. And if he chases, let it be because he discovered something rare, someone who doesn't need to be chased at all. Attention follows self-respect. You are, not performance. And that single truth dismantles most of what you've been taught about attraction, validation, and human connection from an early age. You are. You were trained to perform, say the right thing, act the right way, present the right version of yourself so that someone else will approve. You are. But approval earned through performance is fragile. The moment you stop performing, it disappears. Self-respect, however, does not negotiate. It stands firm. You are. And people are drawn not to those who entertain them, but to those who anchor themselves. Performance is exhausting because it places your value outside your control. You are. Every word becomes a gamble, every interaction a test, every silence a threat. When you live like that, attention feels scarce and scarcity breeds anxiety. You are. Anxiety leaks into tone, posture, timing, and intention. People may not consciously detect it, but they feel it. you are. And human beings instinctively move away from what feels unstable. Self-respect does the opposite. It stabilizes you. It slows you down. It tells the world you are. I am not rushing to be chosen. When you respect yourself, you no longer speak to be impressive. You speak to be accurate. You don't chase reactions. You are. You state reality. You don't overextend. You allow space. That space is not emptiness. It's gravity. People lean toward it because it signals strength. You are. Not aggressive strength, not loud confidence, but quiet certainty. The kind that doesn't ask permission to exist. Most people misunderstand attention. You are. They believe it's something you win. It isn't. Attention is something others offer when they sense value, and value is not proven by effort alone. In fact, you are. Excessive effort often signals doubt. When you try too hard to hold someone's attention, you reveal that you don't fully believe you deserve it. You are. Self-respect corrects that imbalance. It says, if this connection works good, if it doesn't, you are. I remain intact. That psychological posture is deeply attractive because it's rare. Self-respect changes how you enter rooms, conversations, and relationships. You are. You stop scanning faces for approval. You stop adjusting yourself to fit expectations you never agreed to. You listen more, speak less, and choose more carefully. You are. And paradoxically, the less you try to manage how you're perceived, the more compelling you become. Because authenticity rooted in self-respect has weight. You are. It doesn't float. It lands. Performance seeks applause. Self-respect seeks alignment. One needs constant reinforcement. The other is internally supplied. You are. That's why attention gained through performance feels addictive but hollow. You need more and more of it just to feel stable. You are. Attention gained through self-respect feels calm. You're not afraid of losing it because you were never dependent on it to begin with. And that freedom, you are. Freedom from needing is what draws people in. There is a quiet confidence that comes from knowing where you stand. You don't rush to explain yourself. You are. You don't chase closure. You don't beg for consistency from people who haven't earned access to you. You observe. You decide. You are. You walk away when necessary without drama or bitterness. That ability to leave without self-betrayal is the ultimate signal of self-respect. And people notice it. You are, even if they can't articulate why. Attention follows self-respect because self-respect creates boundaries and boundaries define value. You are. Anything with no boundaries feels disposable. When you respect your time, your energy, and your standards, others are forced to respond accordingly. You are. Not all will rise to meet you, but the right ones will. And those are the only ones whose attention matters. So stop performing. You are. Stop auditioning for roles you don't even want. Build yourself until your presence is enough without explanation. Speak when you mean it. Stay silent when you don't. You are. Walk forward with or without applause. Because the moment you choose self-respect over performance, attention no longer has to be chased. It finds you quietly. You are. Naturally. And for the right reasons. Clarity is more attractive than cleverness because clarity signals strength and cleverness often hides uncertainty. You are. Clever words can impress for a moment, but clear intention builds trust, direction, and gravity. When someone speaks clearly, you feel it immediately. You are. There is no confusion, no second guessing, no hidden agenda. You relax in their presence because you don't have to decode them. You are. Human beings are drawn, and clarity is solidity in psychological form. Cleverness tries to win attention by surprise. It entertains, distracts, you are, and dazzles. But attraction is not built on being dazzled. It's built on feeling safe enough to lean in. Cleverness keeps people guessing. Clarity invites them forward. You are. One says, watch me. The other says, this is who I am. And in relationships, certainty is far more compelling than charm. You are. Most people avoid clarity because it feels risky. To be clear is to be seen. To be clear is to accept the possibility of rejection. Cleverness provides cover. You are. It allows you to hide behind jokes, ambiguity, and mixed signals. If things fail, you can pretend you never meant it. But that protection comes at a cost. You are. Ambiguity weakens attraction because it weakens trust. No one deeply desires what feels unstable. When you are clear, your words align with your actions. You are. Your tone matches your intent. You don't send signals and then contradict them with behavior. That alignment creates confidence. Not just in you are, but in the connection itself. People don't chase mixed messages, they chase meaning. And meaning only emerges when someone is brave enough to be direct. You are. Clarity does not mean bluntness or cruelty. It means precision. It means saying less, but meaning more. It means knowing what you want, what you don't, you are, and refusing to disguise either to be liked. There is an undeniable attractiveness in someone who doesn't waste energy pretending. They are efficient, grounded, you are. oriented. You feel it in their presence the way you feel direction when a compass finally stops spinning. Cleverness fades quickly because it depends on novelty. You are. Once the trick is known, the magic is gone. Clarity deepens over time because it builds reliability. You know where you stand. You know what's expected. You are. You know what's possible. That knowledge creates emotional safety, and emotional safety allows desire to grow without fear. People often mistake mystery for confusion. You are. True mystery doesn't come from hiding intent. It comes from depth of character. Clarity about your values, boundaries, and direction does not make you predictable. You are. It makes you trustworthy. And trust is not boring. Trust is the foundation on which real intensity is built. Without it, attraction remains shallow, performative, you are, and short-lived. When you communicate clearly, you remove manipulation from the equation. You don't test people. You don't bait reactions. You are. You don't play games with availability or silence. Games create anxiety, and anxiety masquerading as attraction eventually collapses. Clarity, on the other hand, you are, creates calm, and calm allows genuine connection to emerge. There is power in saying what you mean and meaning what you say. You are. Power in not needing to be the smartest voice in the room. Power in choosing understanding over applause. People remember how clarity made them feel grounded. You are. Oriented, respected. They may forget clever lines, but they don't forget the relief of certainty. So choose clarity. Speak plainly. Act consistently. You are. Let your intentions be visible. You may lose those who thrive on confusion, but you will gain those who value depth, direction, and truth. You are. And those are the people for whom attraction doesn't flicker, it endures. A grounded presence invites pursuit. Desperation repels it. You are. And this truth operates whether you acknowledge it or not. People are instinctively drawn to emotional stability and instinctively pushed away by emotional urgency. You are. Not because urgency is immoral or weak, but because it signals imbalance. Groundedness says, I am steady. Desperation says, you are. I need you to steady me. And no one wants to become the emotional foundation for someone they barely know. You are. A grounded presence is not loud confidence or exaggerated self-assurance. It is calm, measured, rooted. It shows up in how you speak, how you pause. You are. How you listen without interrupting, and how you don't rush to fill silence. Silence, when you are grounded, is not awkward. It is spacious. You are. It communicates that you are comfortable with yourself, and comfort is contagious. People lean toward what feels safe to stand beside. Desperation, on the other hand, you are. Accelerates everything. It speeds up conversation, demands reassurance, over-explains intentions, and tries to secure outcomes prematurely. You are. It asks questions not to understand, but to soothe anxiety. Even when disguised as enthusiasm, it carries a subtle pressure. You are. Please choose me now so I can relax. That pressure suffocates desire. Attraction needs air. Grounded people move at the pace of reality, not fear. You are. They don't attempt to control how they're perceived in every moment. They don't chase responses, reread messages obsessively, or interpret delays as rejection. You are. Their sense of worth is not negotiated through attention. Because of that, their attention becomes valuable. Scarcity does not come from withholding. You are. It comes from self-sufficiency. When you are grounded, you allow others the freedom to approach you. You don't corner them with expectations. You are. You don't make them responsible for your emotional state. This freedom is what creates pursuit. People chase what they are free to want. You are. Not what they feel obligated to manage. The paradox is simple: the less you need, the more desirable you become. Groundedness is built, not performed. You are. It comes from structure in your life, routine, purpose, physical discipline, emotional regulation. When your days have direction, you are. You stop looking to people to provide it. When your identity is anchored in your values, you stop clinging to validation. That inner order radiates outward. You are. Others feel it before you say a word. Desperation often masquerades as intensity, but intensity without stability is chaos. It burns fast and collapses faster. You are. Grounded intensity, however, is compelling. It is desire that is contained, focused, and intentional. It doesn't beg for reciprocation. It waits to see if it's earned. You are. That patience is rare, and rarity creates value. A grounded presence also knows when to walk away, not dramatically, not as a threat, simply as a choice. This ability, you are, to disengage without resentment is the ultimate signal of self-respect. It tells the world that connection is welcome, but not required. You are. And that message awakens pursuit in those who are capable of it. In the end, people do not chase those who chase them. They chase those who are going somewhere. You are. Become stable in your body, clear in your mind, and anchored in your life. Let your presence be calm, your words measured, your actions consistent. You are. When you stop reaching, others start moving. Because groundedness doesn't demand pursuit. You don't make someone chase. You become someone worth following. You are. And that distinction changes everything about how you move through relationships, ambition, and life itself. Chasing is an outcome, not a strategy. You are. It is a response to value, direction, and strength, not to persuasion or pressure. The moment you try to manufacture pursuit, you reveal insecurity. You are. The moment you focus on becoming solid, oriented, and self-directed, pursuit happens naturally, without effort or manipulation. You are. Most people confuse attraction with tactics. They believe attention can be engineered through timing, wording, availability, or emotional provocation. You are. But human beings don't follow tricks, they follow trajectories. We are drawn to people who are going somewhere, who carry themselves with purpose. You are. Who don't stop to ask permission to exist. Direction creates gravity. When you have it, others sense it immediately. To be worth following, you are. You must first follow something yourself, principles, values, a discipline that orders your life. A person without structure seeks validation from others. You are. A person with structure offers stability to others. That stability is deeply attractive because it removes chaos from interaction. You are. People feel calmer around those who are internally organized. Calm is rare and rarity draws attention. You are. Becoming worth following means you stop negotiating your worth in real time. You don't adjust your identity to fit every room. You don't overextend to be like you are. You don't abandon standards for access. Instead, you let people encounter you as you are and decide whether they can meet you there. This filters ruthlessly. You are. But filtering is not loss, it is alignment. Those who are worth following speak with intention. They don't flood conversations with noise. They don't overpromise. You are. They don't explain themselves endlessly. Their words are anchored in action and their actions are consistent over time. Consistency builds trust. You are. Trust builds influence. Influence creates pursuit. This is not charisma, it is reliability. There is also courage involved. When you stop chasing, you risk being alone. That risk terrifies most people, so they settle for proximity instead of respect. You are. But solitude with self-respect is stronger than connection built on compromise. When you can stand alone without resentment, you become magnetic. You are. Independence is not coldness, it is strength without neediness. People follow those who can tolerate uncertainty, those who don't panic when outcomes are unclear. You are. Those who allow relationships to unfold instead of forcing them into shape. This tolerance signals maturity. It says, you are. I trust myself to handle whatever comes next. That confidence invites others to trust you too. Becoming worth following also requires restraint. You are. You don't chase attention. You don't compete for validation. You don't respond to every provocation. Restraint communicates power because it shows choice. You are. Anyone can react, few can choose. Choice is the foundation of leadership in every domain, romantic, social, professional. In the end, you are. Pursuit is not something you demand. It is something you earn by building a life that moves forward whether or not anyone is watching. Walk with purpose. You are. Speak with clarity. Act with consistency. Let others decide if they can keep up. Because when you stop trying to make people chase you, you are. You become someone they don't want to lose, and that is far more powerful